What's going on? You're in the Beat Sessions, the place for all things music and where we do the listening for you. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary, and welcome into the top 10 albums of 2023 so far. It's been an interesting year. I'd argue that 2023 been a little slower than 21 or 22 as far as the overall volume of quality output. But there have been some fascinating projects out there, and the 10 that have intrigued me the most are the ones that are going to make up this list. Now, I always like to preface my list by saying that I can only listen to so much music. So I really would encourage any and all of you to include your own list in the comments section. Helps me make a more comprehensive list for the end of the year, but it's also just great to see what people are thinking and what records really just grabbed a hold of you this year. So without further ado, let's jump into this, starting with number 10 and the Foo Fighters, but here we are. A follow-up that was in the works right off the heels of Medicine at Midnight. We all know that the untimely and tragic death of longtime drummer Taylor Hawkins completely upended this band and irrevocably changed its trajectory. I can't imagine that this is what the band had in mind for their 11th studio album, but Here We Are is just as brilliant sonically as it is lyrically. Dave bears his heart and soul in a lyrical performance that is probably the most vulnerable thing that he's ever done on record. And the massive wall of guitars match the magnitude of emotion that is on this record. And in its delicate moments, Dave is probably more sincere than he's ever been, and that's saying a whole hell of a lot. Key tracks on this thing include Show Me How and The Teacher. Coming in at number 9 is The Murder Capital with Gigi's Recovery. On their sophomore record, the Dublin quintet excel in navigating a post-punk landscape that opens with a brooding and slightly mournful mood, but completes this arc of enlightenment and self-discovery. Jazz and experimental electronic music play a big role on this thing, while James McGovern's rich vocals find their own identity in a familiar post-punk baritone that isn't afraid to critique the current social landscape. Key tracks on this record include The Stars Will Leave Their Stage and Gigi's Recovery. Coming in at number 8 is Uj Aftab, Vijay Iyer, and Shahzad Ismaili with Love in Exile. The first collaboration between these three is a breathtaking journey into a formless, ambient landscape that's driven by improvisation and the immense talent of these individuals. Recorded live and with minimal editing, these three are always on the same page with each other. Their chemistry is undeniable, not just creating, but innovating as these compositions unfold. They combine sounds of jazz, electronica, and different musical elements from all over the world with Aftab's Urdu vocals to create these just beautiful, minimal compositions that are unhurried and really create their own sense of time. Key tracks on this record include Hasenti and Sajane. Coming in at number 7 is Depeche Mode with Momentumori. The 15th studio album from this legendary synth pop group is their first as a duo after the tragic passing of Andy Fletcher, who was pretty much the glue that kept Martin Gore and Dave Gahan and this whole outfit together over all the years. I think both Dave and Martin had their doubts about whether or not Depeche Mode would continue, but ultimately their grief brought them closer and they were able to execute this vision for this record. Martin teamed up with Richard Butler from the Psychedelic Furs for a number of tracks, and the result is a record that gracefully explores coming to terms with mortality through a mix of grinding industrial and electronic synths and big, warm, soaring melodies. Key tracks include Ghost Again and My Favorite Stranger. Your 6th album on this list is Fatimata Dwara with London Co. According to Guitar World, Fatimata is the first female solo electric guitar player out of the country of Mali. It's pretty cool. She's not just an incredible musician, but she's a pioneer. And her 4th record finds her sound more vibrant and expansive than it's ever been before, combining sounds from all over the world that are rooted in the folk traditions of the Wasilla region where she's from in Western Africa. Damon Albarn aboard, collaborating on a number of songs on this record, so I think that's really cool. They've worked together quite a bit in the last few years. Her voice is stunning on this record, though. Lots of blues guitars, great percussion, and Albarn, when he shows up, his synths, perfect match to everything that she's bringing to the table. Key tracks on this album include Nasera and Blues. Coming in at number 5 on your list is Sigur Rós with Ada. The Icelandic trio returned with their first record in 10 years, but with a slightly different lineup. Gone is drummer Ori Derson, and in his place, former member and multi-instrumentalist Kjartan Svensson is back in the mix. Very happy to see him back in this band. And his presence, this new dynamic, significantly informs the record Ada. The trio team up with the London Contemporary Orchestra to create these arrangements that are gorgeous and lush, but are formless in the absence of Dearson's percussion. With that said, this album demands to be listened from start to finish. Immerse yourself in this experience. It's absolutely extraordinary. Key tracks include Andra and 8. Coming in at number 4 on the list is Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit with Weather Vanes. On his 9th studio album and his 6th with the 400 Unit, the established singer-songwriter excels in creating songs that thrive off of nuance, demonstrating his skills as a producer, but also highlighting the chemistry of arguably the best backing band out there right now, the 400 Unit. This album is impressive, not because of its ingenuity, but because it witnesses Isbell writing compositions that are tighter than ever before, that really pay attention to detail, and that continue to unfold beautifully with every new listen. Key tracks on this record include Death Wish and Cast Iron Skillet. In at number 3 on your list is John Cale with Mercy. This list includes a few selections that are fairly avant-garde, but John Cale's first album of original material in over a decade is pretty far out there, but in all the right ways. Mercy finds him collaborating with a number of artists, including Weissblood and Animal Collective, to produce an experience that is not just intoxicating, it's damn near hallucinogenic. This album combines electropop and R&B to create these elegiac gothic soundscapes that are just mesmerizing and lay the framework for John Cale to just scorch the earth lyrically on a number of current events. Key tracks on this record include Mercy and Everlasting Days. The number 2 album on your list is Luster Parfait from Gore, Downey, and Bob Rock. 5 years after the passing of the tragically hip frontman, his good friend and collaborator Bob Rock was finally able to fulfill one of Gore Downey's final wishes. Please let the world hear Luster Parfait. This collection of songs is outstanding, and I'd argue it warrants consideration for being some of the best work that either of these guys have ever done. Gord's lyrics are top-notch, and his vocal performance receives meticulous production from Bob, whose rock and roll prowess creates a sonic experience that's inviting and magnetic and ultimately bittersweet. It's great to have this collection of songs, but it's pretty sad knowing that we'll never get to see Gord perform them. Key tracks on this record include Grey Boy Says and Something More. And that brings us to your number 1 record, which belongs to The National with First 2 Pages of Frankenstein. The past few years saw the members of The National pursue personal endeavors after COVID shut down a scheduled world tour. And I especially enjoyed Aaron's work with Taylor Swift. When this band reconvened, though, they discovered that lead singer Matt Berninger was in a dark place, and it was adversely affecting his creativity. And so these guys, being as tight as they are, just decided to approach the songwriting process differently to help Matt get over that hurdle. And the result is a record that is stunning. It is rich and fluid, gorgeous in its momentum, and its textures feel so completely thought out. And if all of that wasn't enough, some great guest appearances from Sufjan Stevens, Phoebe Bridgers, and Ms. Taylor Swift. I absolutely love it. And there it is, your top 10 albums of 2023 so far. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I do want to shout out Manchester Orchestra and the Valley of Vision. It's an EP. I had a hard time putting it on the list for that reason, but an incredible project, an incredible multimedia experience. If you're not familiar with it, go check it out and stay tuned for more album reviews throughout the year on the Beat Sessions. We'll see you guys next time.